All right, 6 p.m. Please join me for the regular school board meeting, Independent School District number 882, Monticello, Minnesota. The date is December 15th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Please note that Chair Sieben is out and Board Member Mary Barthel is out as well. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
By Melissa, seconded by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 5-0.
4-0.
4-0, sorry. No citizens' comments tonight, so that will bring us to fiscal stability, item number 5. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Melissa, seconded by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 4-0. That brings us to item number 6, collaborative connections. I'll pass it over to Superintendent Olson.
Always an exciting part of the agenda to see the support from our community. This time we have TDS Telecom coming forward with $1,000 for the Monty Python's robotics team. So I'd like to bring that forward for resolution and obviously thank TDS and the continued amazing support from our community.
Therefore, be resolved by the Monticello School Board number 882 to gratefully accept the following donations from TDS Telecom, $1,000 for the Monty Python's robotics team.
Second.
Moved by Jeff, seconded by Melissa. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 4-0. Now on to innovation and leadership, superintendent search with Dr. Dan Bittman. Welcome to the podium.
Here tonight. It's a great pleasure to talk a little bit about the feedback that we have received from over 400, between 400 and 500 different people through our different sessions, our surveys, etc. And we have a lot to celebrate here in Monticello. So with that, tonight we'll talk a little bit about some of the themes, the results, and then some of the comments. Each of the board members have already had an opportunity to see those in advance, but we'll present those this evening and certainly have an opportunity to have some conversation about that. We'll talk a little bit about the 31 characteristics that people were able to weigh in on. Board members know, but for those in the public, in addition to the survey, we were able to have 6 different listening sessions with students, community leaders, parents, staff, etc. And we were grateful for the time that they took. And so that feedback is also incorporated into our sessions and feedback for this evening. We talked early on, multiple times when I've been here before, about the importance of building the leadership profile. So this information all goes back into the profile in which we then will look to you to verify tonight and give approval. We would then use that information as we seek candidates out, as well as screen the different applications and materials that they put forward. Again, we would use that to identify a series of candidates that we would then bring to you for consideration, and then you as a board would get the opportunity to decide who you'd like to move on. Again, this is your search, and we're simply providing the information behind the scenes for you to consider. So we have provided that information. In terms of the specific survey, we had 396 different respondents. That is a very good number in terms of the characteristics. And what we found is that the feedback that we received aligned well across all of the groups. So there was not dramatic differences between one group to the other, for example, and many of the characteristics came through consistently in a lot of different themes. That is not always the case in particular school districts. And so tonight, these are the top 10 characteristics that were recommended. And again, board members have seen this information before. The very first one that came through is really that excellent interpersonal skills, that positive image of the district, and will listen to input and is able to make a decision. So many folks that provided spoke highly of the current superintendent and the amount of time and effort that is put in, not only in the school district, but in the community, to really gather multiple perspectives, gather feedback, and then at the end of the day, make decisions that he, in this case, felt was right for the school district in accordance with and in alignment with the school board. The second item that came up was really related to the leadership skills, the knowledge and sensitivity required to really think about all the unique opportunities and challenges of a diverse community. We've changed a lot in Monticello. We continue to see a lot of change. We have a lot of different programming, et cetera. And so really that ability to be able to reach out authentically and understand the world is changing, academics are changing, our populations are changing, et cetera. The third characteristics that came out very strong was really that strong moral compass. Really that focus on doing what's right, on justice, on equality, and making sure that each and every student had what they needed, whatever that looked like in terms of programming and extracurriculars, et cetera. The next one being a strong communicator, making sure that they were out and about, making sure that they could send emails, making sure they could present to a crowd, making sure they were sending articles out. There was a lot of comments from a lot of different people who talked about going from one type of situation to the next. The job of the superintendency is difficult. One moment, shaking hands and celebrating kids, another situation, navigating crisis. And so that ability to continue to communicate on the road as things change. A commitment to community visibility. This was, again, one of the most common themes from every single group. There were comments about the current superintendent being at everything. And there were comments from not only the staff, but families, community, businesses, et cetera, that said, we just don't know how they do it. It's not because they are the superintendent, but because it's just who they are. They're in classrooms, they're at student events, they're in local businesses, they're at Rotary, they're at all these different kinds of events. And we want to make sure that the superintendent that the board hires is someone who wants to authentically just be part of our community and loves being part of each and every activity that comes forward. The last one on this particular page talks a little bit about delegating and overseeing the work of staff and recognizing that the superintendent has a big job, but being able to surround themselves with really good people, hold them accountable, but also to trust in them to do the work and to make sure that we're moving the work forward in alignment with our vision, our mission, and things that we stand for here in Monticello. The next most common theme, which was number 12 on the list of 31 characteristics, was just that effective management and planning. Making sure that we're planning for the long-term success of our district. A lot of folks talked about that even though we recently had a successful ballot question, it's not the answer forever and always. And so we really want to make sure we're utilizing our dollars for our students, for our staff, for our families, but that we do everything we can to use taxpayers' money respectfully and in accordance with all of our laws and policies. The next one also came out loud and clear, and this was particularly interesting, just really making sure that every single decision that we make, regardless of what that is, whether it's fiscal, whether it's programmatically, whether it's in our community, that we continue to bring back the decisions to what is best for kids. Recognizing that our world is changing quickly, and it's easy to get distracted. So that opportunity, again, to be able to make sure that the decisions we're making are student-centered and focused on what we believe is best. There was also a lot of conversation and support for the importance of both academic and extracurricular programs. So many commented on things like STEM and nature-based programming. They talked about the different types of courses and offerings within our school system from pre-K all the way to 12th grade. They talked about how important it is to make sure that we're not just a surviving district, but that we continue to be innovative and look for ways to make sure that we're making Monticello a district that people continue to want to be part of and come to. The next most common characteristic that people talk about is just the importance of someone who possesses the ability to enhance student performance, particularly in areas where we would like to be closer to that higher mark for student achievement, recognizing there are some gaps that happened that we're certainly proud of the work and the progress that we've made, but there's more work to do in terms of achievement. And some of the work that we've been doing here in Monticello, folks talked about the importance of continuing to keep that going and a priority. And then finally, promoting a positive and professional environment that includes mutual trust and respect among faculty, staff, administration, and the board. So that ability that Monticello is something special. People don't want to leave Monticello. They want to continue to work collaboratively, and they want to do that together. And they recognize that part of this, what makes Monticello special, is the fact that everyone is working together to do great things. And that's not only because with the school district, but with the community. Loud and clear from some of our business leaders and our government officials, just the important role that Monticello plays in terms of the communities, in terms of the community of Monticello. So this was a document that you also saw that I included in the presentation, but it just talked a lot about the different words that came up most frequently. And again, board members have had a copy of that, but you can see some of the words that came up, and then they're directly related to the characteristics you had. Students came up a lot, community came up a lot, children came up a lot, families, and again, the important role that the Monticello Public School District has in this area of town. And oftentimes people talked about this is the center that brings all folks together in Monticello Public Schools. I'm just going to take a moment to see if there was anything from the board that surprised you in terms of the survey results or the characteristics.
There was a lot of similarities into what you just covered with the highlights from the comments. So yeah, there is the overarching common theme across the district and the community and what we're looking for a superintendent. So I second a lot of the comments around Mr. Olson and the work that he does. He's very visible out there in the community, and I think it's something that the board and the staff also are looking forward to have the same similar commonalities in our next superintendent. So.
Anyone else? Anything that stood out to you? Anything that surprised you?
Can you just tell us how we came to the ordering of these? I see that there's, in the spreadsheet, there's the raw numbers, and then there's the ranking for each of the category, or each of the voting blocks, or the survey blocks of people. Yeah, did that make sense, my question? Okay.
I think so. So I'm happy to provide you with the raw data by number, but most of them, or some of them, have overlapping. So you saw in the document that some of them are perhaps combined because they're an overarching theme. But the ones that are listed, again, were the most common mentioned in each of the overall areas. That make sense?
And when you say common, that they were part of the 10 that people selected? Okay, it looked like the one at the bottom that you had in the previous slide, has classroom experience in a K-12 setting, that appears to have really strong rankings. I'm surprised that it's not part of the top 10 list.
Yeah, I'm glad that you listed that. So this was one that tied a number of the other particular areas, and that's why I listed it right there. There were a number of people who did identify classroom experience as a K-12 setting. So by putting it in here for consideration for each of you, it is the next one. It is the one that people that would have come next in terms of that area. And so my hope is that tonight, when the board acts, they can decide either to have those top 10, add the 11th one, because that's something that came through in a number of series, or they can narrow that down. Again, whatever they feel most is comfortable for their next superintendent. But you are absolutely right. That is one that didn't make the top 10 list, but did have a number of commonalities and trends.
Thanks.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the timeline. So tonight, what we are hoping for, the timeline that was initially approved by the board talked about tonight being the night that we approve the job application, which has now been brought a couple different times, the top 10 characteristics and or 11, if we want to include the one that we encourage you to think about in terms of a consideration, and then the promotional materials that was based on not only this information, but in collaboration with the district personnel of things that you are most proud of, and again, things that came in terms of the themes. Once that's approved then, that information will go out to applicants. It'll be available. I'll work with the school district to make sure that's on our website, but we also include that in the various different sources that we talked about earlier when I presented. And it also will go out on a number of national web pages. It also will go out to the thousands of people that we have on our list. And so once approved, again, that opens tomorrow. It will then not close until the 18th of January, at which time, after that, we will take some time to review it based on the criteria that you've approved. And then, as you know, in February, we would then bring that to you as a slate of candidates where you would then have the opportunity to talk, to ask questions. We, on our end, would give you candidate reports, the information we talked in terms of the questions, the interview-specific questions for the board to look at. And again, members of the board will have access to all the materials ahead of time. So what we are looking for tonight, when you're ready, is an acceptance of the characteristics and approval of the job application that you've seen, as well as the promotional materials that have been developed with your board chair, your current superintendent, and your communications specialist. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
You guys have any questions or?
I could use another couple minutes to
Okay.
this
all right,
list,
no
if
problem.
that's okay.
As a reminder for the board, this information then will go to the full board to have information, but then it will go to a committee of the board for more in-depth questions, interviews, information, et cetera.
I think you covered it a little bit, the postings. We are looking not only internally inside the state, but also externally outside of the states.
Correct. Really good question. So that will be posted on a number of sites, both within the state, starting as early as tomorrow, and throughout the country. And so I'll give you a weekly update on the number of individuals who have started applications, where they're coming from, what type of expertise they have, et cetera.
I feel like the K-12 experience, I mean, as I look at the raw data and the rankings on here, I mean, I'm trying to do the math quick in my head here because I didn't throw this into a spreadsheet, but I'm curious if that's meaningful to us, because it's pretty meaningful to the people that filled out the survey, and it competes well with a lot of the other qualities that we're looking for. And if I wanted to, I could probably take a handful of those qualities and wrap them up into one, because there's a lot of overlap. So I think we could easily get that K-12 experience on there if we thought that was important. I'm not saying I think it's important.
So, Dan, you're looking for an approval of characteristics that you have listed here?
Yes, so the three things that we're looking for tonight are the characteristics. So there are 10. And in addition to that, there's one that we would encourage you to really consider, which is the one that was just brought up. So that one would be an 11th one. We would then use those to screen the candidates, et cetera. It was important to a lot of the individuals that provided feedback, and so definitely worthy of something to do. In addition to that, just the job application that you've seen before, as well as the promotional materials.
I'd be curious to know what percentage of superintendents already have that experience, because I feel like the majority would.
They do.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is absolutely the case. There is,
very few would not.
interestingly, in Minnesota, Minnesota is one of the only states that allows an alternatively licensed superintendent, where someone who has no experience in education can become a superintendent. And that happened many, many years ago at the legislature, from a legislator who wanted to be a superintendent, and then became the first one to follow that law and became a longtime superintendent in Minnesota.
And approving these characteristics, so will these be published with the job description so that a person's looking at this and looking to see if they have these characteristics that we're looking for? Is that why we're approving that?
They will definitely be built into the promotional materials and will definitely make them available. Those particular characteristics, however, will be the ones that we will use along with the other information the board has approved to evaluate each of the applications. And so those characteristics will be able to say where someone is really high in each of those areas or maybe somewhere low in some of those areas, and then provide an overall recommendation to the board for consideration.
But each one of these candidates you'll be talking to directly anyways. It's not like you're going to just look at their resume and say, oh, you only met 9 of these 10, so we're not going to contact you. You're going to be talking to
100%.
everyone.
Yep, 100%. And actually, by the time that they are brought to you, they've gone through a number of steps, not only by me personally as leading the search, but members on our team and the board. And it will also be brought, as I said, to a committee of this particular board. So just one step that we want to take a review. If something on there stood out to you as not being important or something that was really important, we would want to know that, just because we'll then work with the board in terms of specific questions and things that you'd want to ask.
Dr. Bittman, are we trying to decide if we're going to replace one of the 10 with the 11th or add an 11th?
It's a good question. You can absolutely add. No need to replace it all. Again, we'll just use that feedback from this board to make sure that we're providing a close eye on that for applications.
Maybe it doesn't matter, because if we say most people do, and if they don't check that box, it doesn't mean that we're not going to take a serious look at them anyway.
I think you should include it.
Should include it?
If it's, I mean, in our surveys, if it was important in the surveys, then it should be included. Just
I agree.
I feel like it adds a valuable, important perspective too. They've been in the classroom.
The aligns really nicely, not only with the feedback, but with the board's efforts around achievement and the work that you're doing here in Monticello. So if the board is,
I'm good with that. If we could add that, I think that's great. Maybe we just say characteristics recommended
perfect.
to top 11.
We'd be looking for a motion when you're ready for the job application, the promotional materials, and then the characteristics with the add of the considerate for the experience.
Make a motion to accept what Dr. Dan Bittman just stated.
I think it's a call out all 3, I believe.
Who moved?
Second,
The action item requested the superintendent search with the items presented is voted 4-0. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Will say nay. Passes 4-0.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry, I had that messed up there, a little backwards.
Good rookie mistake.
I know, right? I'm not, some of us haven't been here for 3 decades, Jeff.
Every meeting you gotta throw it in there.
No. You look good, though, for that long. So, next we'll call up Gary Revening to go over our fall season wrap-up and look ahead for the activities report.
All right, good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Olson. I'm here to give you your activities update from the fall and currently from our winter activities. Before I start, just received an email this afternoon from the Minnesota State High School League that our Grant B application has been approved, so we will be getting a new AED. I'll work with our high school school nurse, Kelly Barrow, and we will get one ordered here when the money arrives in January. Also, I just got back from vacation. I want to thank Gavin Nelson and Jared Hines for helping put this together for me tonight. So thank you, Gavin. All right, first one, conference championships this fall. We had another successful fall and fine arts season at Monticello High School. 5 of our 8 teams won conference championships. We also brought home a state championship in girls swimming and diving. The conference championships were from volleyball, girls tennis, boys soccer, girls swim and dive, and our football team. Boys cross country, led by Coach Kortenkamp, the Magic Boys cross country team ended with the state participant in junior Atar Peralta He is competing in Class AAA for the first time, and he finished 88th overall at the state tournament. He is a foreign exchange student at Monticello High School this year. He lives with the Mahoneys, and he is from Spain. So unfortunately, he gets 1 year to compete, and this was his year. And if I remember right, he's only 15 or 16, so it would have been nice to have him back. He's an excellent runner. And fun fact, he has a twin brother, I heard, that also is a foreign exchange student in another state, and he made it to the state tournament in cross country as well. Girls cross country, competing again, Class AAA for the first time. We sent 2 girls to the state tournament, Isabel Mahoney and Kylie Lindberg. Mahoney finished her high school career with the 12th place finish, and Lindberg finished 98th. Mahoney will continue her running career next season at the University of Northwestern, and that's in the Big Ten. Girls tennis had another successful season. They won the Mississippi 8 Conference. They advanced a couple rounds into the Section 8 AAA tournament. The senior duo of Samantha Vole and Julia Deshane had a strong finish in doubles. They are 1 win away from advancing to the state tournament. And it says here that Jared and Gavin put down that the future is bright for girls tennis, and I agree with that. Boys soccer, we're in a new section. Magic competed strong all year, posted a 10-6-2 record. The boys made it to the Section 8 3A tournament, where we lost in the semifinals to Buffalo, who went on to the Final Four in the state tournament. I went with the team up to Moorhead this year. It was an outstanding game. We knocked off Moorhead. They were seated ahead of us. Team finished the season playing extremely well in soccer. It was fun supporting them along the way. Girls soccer. Magic went 10-6-3 this season, and we're in the 6 AA championship. We lost to St. Francis in overtime, came down to penalty kicks, and it's not the first time we've been beat on penalty kicks, which is hard to watch. It comes down to 5 kicks, and whoever scores more advances, and that's how we lost again this year, by 1 penalty kick. Volleyball. For the 6th season in a row, the Magic volleyball team were conference champs. We actually tied with Princeton and North Branch. It says Chisago, but it should be North Branch. And Monticello went 20-10 on the season. We lost to Alexandria in the semifinals. We had a strong senior class playing for the Magic that helped lead us through the last several years advancing to the state tournament. So it'd be hard to see them go. Football. While the weather didn't cooperate for many of our home games, the team continued to push on. We were 8-2. We won the North Star District title, and we ended up losing to Elk River in the section final. They advanced to the Final Four in state. So that was a tough loss. Came down to the last play. We were ahead late, if you were there, and they scored with like 30-some seconds to go. And then we actually threw a pass into the end zone that we almost completed. So exciting game, tough one to lose, and I'm slowly getting over that one. Adaptive soccer under first-year head coach Emily Harry, picture there. The adaptive soccer team went to the state tournament for the 2nd straight year, and we lost to the defending state champs. And then in consolation, we did win a game, first game in program history that we won at the state tournament. So fun watching the Coyotes this fall. Girls swim and dive, state champions. So the Monticello girls swim team and dive won the Class A state championship on November 15th with 227 points. We had 2 divers, Chloe Schriedering and Addie Ziggin, in the top 8. And we took first in the 200-yard free with Adeline Biegler, and also in the 100-yard fly. She won that as well. Our 200-yard free relay and 400-yard free relay, also state champions, with Biegler, Urich, Farnsworth, and Vogley. And the state championship is the school's 4th in history. Our first championship for Monticello High School was 2011 and with girls cross country, then in 2022 and 2023 in girls track. So all 4 state titles from our girls teams. Shrek the Musical. Hopefully you made it to the musical. It was directed by Ryan Siddell. All 3 showings just like 2 weeks ago. plenty of laughs, and it was one of the best musicals I've seen in my 16 years as activities director. I just want to thank our staff and our students. I thought they did an amazing job. Fine arts, starting here this winter. First Robotics, you've seen quite a few donations come in. They're doing a great job raising money for the robotics program. Knowledge Bowl is just starting practice. They'll start competing in January after winter break. DECA is just getting started as well. We also have math team. We held a math team competition today at the high school. So that will wrap up here in January, but math team's had a couple events so far. Jazz band, Pops choir, they meet in the morning, our music department. So jazz band and Pops choir both have good participation numbers right now. And then one act, FFA, one act just started tryouts, so they're getting going here. They will compete end of January and into February. FFA, Jacob Wiltz, has been pretty much running that program year round, raising money and providing unbelievable opportunities for our students. And that program continues to grow at Monticello High School. Speech, we just added a co-op with St. Michael. You approved that about a month ago. That is going to start in January, so it hasn't started yet. And I know we have a few students that are interested in participating in speech. And then winter sports roundup, real quick. Off to a good start again. Dance team. Okay, they're fresh off a state tournament appearance last season. They're back with some early success this year. December 6th, the Magic took first place in both varsity kick and varsity jazz at the Forest Lake Invitational, and you can see a picture of them. Riverhawks hockey, through 10 games, we're 4-6. We co-op with St. Michael Albertville with the recent win over Buffalo to retain the Wright County Cup. Heckendorf, Larson, and Ringett all have 10 points for North Wright County to lead the team so far this season. Moose hockey, our boys hockey team, we're off to a 1-2-2 start so far, but we are ranked. We have a strong team. We played some really tough teams so far, and we'll have a competitive regular season, and hopefully we're going to make some noise this year in section. So boys hockey looking to get back to the state tournament. Wrestling, off to a good start. We have a new coach pictured here, Vince Dietz. Met with him again today. We have two big events coming up in wrestling. Friday is our girls invitational, and Saturday is the boys. So hopefully we'll get a good turnout at Monticello High School for both of those. We're off to a 4-1 start. Our participation numbers are up. Wrestling's off to a good start this winter. Gymnastics just started competing last week. They beat St. Francis, and they won the Elk River Invite on Saturday. Last year, we took second in Class A. We're bumped up to AA. We have our girls back, and we're one of the strongest gymnastics teams in the state, hoping to get back there and make some noise this year in AA at the state tournament. Girls basketball, we were undefeated last year. We have everyone back this year. Again, same thing, moved up a class. Star Tribune just had us, I read the article yesterday. They did an article that Monticello basketball is the smallest school in 4A, but ready to make some noise this winter. So hopefully that's the case. We're on a little bit of a roll. We won our last few games here. But again, we've added some of the best teams in the state to get ready for postseason play. It'll be a little bit tougher this year, being in 4A, but we have a very, very strong senior class. Boys basketball, off to a great start. They're 3-1. Includes a 67-28 win over Mound Wastanka last week. Last year, Mound beat us. So it was a nice turnaround this year to beat them by 40 points. And we've got a busy week. We're home on Tuesday and Thursday this week with Moorhead coming to town tomorrow. That's a section game in 4A. And then Thursday we host Princeton, which has always been a tough game, kind of a rival game in our conference. Adaptive floor hockey just started. They wrapped up state soccer and they're right on to floor hockey. We won our first game 17-10. A lot of the same athletes play for their floor hockey team. Again, we co-op with St. Michael and with Buffalo, And Emily Harry is now our assistant coach, coach from St. Michael is the head coach this winter. How it works, Monticello runs the fall team, soccer, St. Michael runs the winter team, and now Buffalo will run the spring team, adaptive softball. So we all take turns running those programs. And that's it. Any questions? Any of the activities right now?
Thanks for the overview. It's nice to see there's a plethora of options for students to get involved in multiple different ways with different sports and activities. Some of those you highlighted on there, of like non-contact items as well, or other opportunities to get involved. So it's great to see. So
There's interest, we try to find a way.
yeah, no, wonderful.
I appreciate your support. It wouldn't have been possible. I know, so a few years ago, your daughter was interested in speech, and we just didn't have enough kids, and now hopefully we have a few more, and we found an opportunity, so.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Now on to teaching and learning with a course approval. This will be an action item with Principal Lori Hansen.
Good evening, members of the school board, Mr. Olson, Superintendent Olson. I've got with me Derek Swart. We're here with 4 new courses. At the middle of Tri-2, we're already in preparation for the 26-27 school year. So as you are looking, and just a reminder, normally I would come to you at a work session and give you a little bit of an update in a 101, and we got bumped in a couple weeks ago. So all of our courses try to really align to either our career fields, our pathways, or just enhancing our core offerings. And so we have 4 tonight that we want to share with you. I'm going to present 3 of them. Mr. Swart's going to present 1 of them. The first one ties into our multilingual learning pathways, or our courses that we currently have 4 that really provide a foundational academic and language baseline, so that kids that are new to Monticello High School, maybe new to country, that have opportunities to just build their English language skills. So we currently have an ELD Intermediate Foundations and Advanced and a Focused Literacy course. This course is a speak and write course that really would be based on, my glasses on here so I can read this. It fits into the programming that supports multilingual learners. It focuses on speaking and writing and skills that are needed across all core areas, and focus on the academic output needed to be successful in all content and grades. So it really is a snapshot right there. We have staff in place that are really doing digging into what is necessary, where are some of our strengths, and where are some of our gaps in our programming. And they came with a recommendation to add a speak and write course that really adds that next layer.
12 in a couple of our electives in the English department. We have an existing class called Science Fiction Fantasy Literature. We have an existing class called World Literature. Both of those are also electives open to students in grades 10 through 12. And each of them is trying to serve an audience with different interest levels. Obviously, in an ideal world, students are able to take electives that meet whatever interests they have. And this one happened to be inspired by a teacher who now is at the middle school, Nate Russell. He had mentioned this years ago as something that he kind of had in his back pocket. And in conversations with Ms. Hansen, it got me thinking, actually, I think there's a good spot for this right now. I think in Monticello, we have a lot of students who are very enthusiastic about the outdoors, and have a lot of experience that they would be bringing. And it made sense to me to start to put together a course that met those students where they are at the interest level that they're at. So click forward a little bit here. The only thing a student would have to have done ahead of time is just made their way through English 9. It's going to be a class that looks at hiking. And it's one of the projects that we would be interested in doing is putting together a week-long hike, and you'd have to plan everything and get a budget and plan out where are you going to go, what are the things you have to plan for, do you need to carry bear spray. There's a unit on hunting and fishing, which I suspect in some cases students are going to be able to know more than I do. There'd be a unit on farming and a unit on forestry ecology. So and the course would end on some choice literature that students are able to group up and do like lit circle discussions with other people based on a variety of like choices that they would have. Okay, so I think I've hit all of the things that I was aiming for, and I will turn it back to Ms. Hanson.
All 4 of these courses are elective options, so as you're listening and thinking through them, the next 2 in particular are really, we're asking for approval, but they are truly dependent on us receiving some grant funding. So we're asking for approval on them, but we won't find out about the grant approval process until the end of January and beginning of February. So we want these in our course catalog so we can continue to do some of the background work, but know that if that funding doesn't come, we're going to put these on pause and continue to do some of that work for 27, 28. But we want all of the things to continue to move forward so that we are prepared if all of the funding comes to life for us. The next one is really interesting to us. It's unmanned aerial systems, also known as drones. So this is a course where we're trying to be highly innovative but very fiscally responsible, but know that this falls under the pathway of emerging technologies, which we know is really an up-and-coming interest for a lot of areas, and we're going to tuck this one into our industrial tech department. And it really is Drones 101. There's a couple schools in cities that are offering that we've been using as kind of our model, and they've been tremendous in offering us some guidance in regards to policy. So we currently have policy that says no drones. So ideally, after approval, we would be back here in a month or so saying we need to look at policy. It's an expensive course to launch, so we're working with a lot of outside agencies to help really support us and build some sustainability with it, because once we have the curriculum, once we have the resources and the time built in, we've got a good plan, but we just need that initial funding to help us get going. Emerging technologies, a prereq for this would truly be, because it's going to be high interest for kids, but it's more than just Drones 101. We really want to tuck it under those students that are interested in that higher level engineering, web development, coding, game design, so that it's really an established pathway, because we will work with the Department of Education to put this into a framework and get some CTE reimbursable as well. So number of factors coming into this class. And we want approval so that all of the things can keep moving forward, but know that this will, I think, will be a really high interest class and really relevant to, again, that pathway of philosophy that says, I think we are finding more and more agencies and industries that really have this kind of technology coming into their workforce. Some examples, Wright County Sheriff's Office, real estate, marketing, construction, public safety, ag, transportation, military, defense. So we want this as a foundational course that eventually will come back and say, gosh, look at the interdisciplinary connections that we're making with real life applications. So again, no pun intended when I say it's expensive to launch, but we're doing a lot of front loading of the work to get it in our course catalog for our kids. And then the same thing, the last one is a CIS Intro to Special Education. Over the last couple of years, we've been here a number of times with our education pathway and training, and we've got a very robust pathway for kids, CIS Intro to Education, multicultural education, and education technology, and those all were kind of gift started with a intro to teaching grant that we received 4 years ago. That's coming to the end of life in a year, and we went back and reapplied for another round of that. If we get that approval, we would like to bring that in, because we would have a very strong intro to teaching pathway. This one is specific to special ed, and we feel like it would really triangulate well with our youth service program and our unified programming. We feel like we've got a really nice layers of offerings that this could tuck into our culture, pathways. It's what our kids are, I think, interested and invested in. And so this one will only come to life in the 26-27 school year if the grant comes our way at the end of January or beginning of February. So the last two are truly grant dependent for next year's implementation. If those grants don't come through, we will continue to do some back-end work to see how we can get those in place for kids. Knowing, again, I think our goal is to be innovative, but also to be really financially mindful and build something that's sustainable. So we have 4 courses. I'll pause and answer questions.
Well, I think it's great to add to our offerings that you guys have. We see a couple times a year just offering more classes on there, sparking more interests, and it's a great avenue for other students to look at our other alternatives to expand their education. So thank you for that. Any other questions?
Yes. You mentioned that numbers 3 and 4, so the drones and the intro to special ed are dependent on grants. What's the plan on 1 and 2 for how to pay for those?
So Mr. Swart and I have a plan to, I think the 2 pieces that come for when we launch a new class is how do we create time for them to develop a really strong curriculum with it. And so over the last couple of years, we've been able to use our building sub to work with, in this case would be Mr. Swart, to say, here's our curriculum map, here's our standards, here's our outcomes. We will use time between now and the end of the school year to give him to build that so that it doesn't come out of funding, because we already have Brian Hoffman, who is our building sub. So we'll put Brian in Derek's room a couple of different times throughout the year to give him some time. Within the resources, what did you mention the other day to me with purchasing some books? We anticipate about $800 to $1,000 for new reading material with this. He's got some creative ways that he's looking at. What did you say?
Yeah, so in the English department, Amanda Kartak, who is our former department head, has been kind of like almost our department quartermaster for a while. She maintains a really, I would describe it as diverse donors choose. And anytime that we come across like a text that we think would be handy, it's a lot easier to just say, Amanda, can you see if we can get 30 copies of this on donors choose? And often the answer is yes, especially at kind of peak times of the year, such as right now. And also during teacher appreciation weeks, we see a big spike in getting those fulfilled. A second place we see a big spike is she maintains an Amazon wish list, and she has a lot of that available in her social media, and at different times people fund those. So we've already seen, like we have a number of the books that I would be using for this. We've already seen some movement on that already.
The rest of it would come out of our building budget. In regards to the materials, the Speak and Write class, we anticipate $350 a year subscription. So that we feel like we can manage within our building budget. So they're a little bit more cost-efficient classes to start.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say, you guys know I have a little bit of time on my hands next year, so I'm going to put you guys to the test. Make sure your office is ready to screen out applicants of seemingly, super seniors. And I just want to make sure that I've heard that happens, and I just want you guys to maybe be ready for a definite older super senior to take one of these classes. Looks awesome. Okay, I'll just visit then. Okay, I won't do any of that funny stuff.
Any other questions we can answer or just provide clarification on?
All right, this is an action item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Melissa, second by, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
We'll be back to give you an update.
All right. Now we'll move on to safe and healthy culture with a financial state of the district and final levy approval. Action item with Tina Burkholder, Director of Business Services.
All right, good evening. So tonight, we just have a continuation of our presentation from December 1st with our Truth and Taxation hearing. Wanted to go over a couple things and then also ask for approval for our levy tonight. So just as a reminder, for Truth and Taxation, we have to have our meeting between November 25th and December 26th. So we hosted that officially December 1st. We have to present our current year budget information. go over major changes with the property tax levy, and then also allow for public comment. With our budget cycle and tax levy cycle, we're a little bit different than cities and counties. Our fiscal year goes from July 1st to June 30th. So the levy tonight that's approved is for our 26-27 budget. So this is really the first stage of the budgeting process, and we won't start getting into the details until the spring after assumptions have been approved and kind of finalizing those budget pieces. So within our budget, we have different funds where we have to track activity, and only 3 of our funds actually receive property tax revenue in them. Our general fund, which includes our capital projects fund and our special ed cooperative, our community service fund, which also includes our hockey fund, and the debt service fund. The other funds do not receive property tax revenue. Taking a look at our budget, on the revenue side, for this year, our general fund is our main operating fund where it makes up 83% of the activity. And also on the expense side, the general fund again is the largest portion of our budget. Diving a little deeper into the general fund, just looking at the general fund, not including our capital projects activity or our special ed cooperative, our largest source of revenue comes from the state with 77%, and local property taxes being 18%. Next year, when we see the approved referendum come in, that might change a little bit where the property tax levy might be around 20 to 21% and state sources being around 74%. So just changing a little bit next year. On the expense side, we are a very labor-intensive industry where 80% of our budget is people with salary and benefits. And if anybody wanted to dive a little deeper with our budget, I have our budgets that have been approved since I've been here on our website under the business and finance section. It breaks down the budget even further to go by site and by subject area if needed. Next, I wanted to go over a couple highlights with our general fund last year. We had our audit that was presented and approved on November 17th, so I wanted to go over a couple slides that Mary touched on, talk about our unassigned fund balance and some one-time special events. So this slide is very hard to read, but it's our second slide from the audit presentation that shows our general fund and the activity over the last 5 years, a basic summary of just the overall expenses and revenues coming in and all the different fund balances that we have to manage and keep track of according to the state. So on here, and the most left side being the current activity for last year, you'll see that we had a net change in fund balance of $5.2 million, and the line above that, a large part of that includes a one-time event. We have other financing sources of $6.2 million, and that is our insurance proceeds that comes from our hail claim that resulted in July of 2024. Without that one-time event, our actual fund balance change would have been a negative million change in fund balance, so a decrease in our fund balance of $1 million. So to get a true accurate picture of our financial health for the school district, you need to take a look at our unassigned fund balance, and that is $4.7 million. The previous year is $4.2 million. And our fund balance policy talks about how we compare that to our general fund expenditures, excluding the capital projects expenditures. So in this year and the next couple of years, we'll see some of that insurance activity go into place, and excluding our cooperative. When you take a look at that, our fund balance is 7.7%. Our policy is try to be within 8 to 16%. So that kind of shows a true picture of our financial health. This slide from the audit presentation has a 5-year history of our unassigned fund balance. So we did have a little bit of spike last year, 2024, 2 years ago, when we received a larger increase in state aid. Another slide from our audit, they break down how we spend our funds by category. I highlighted in blue 2 administrative categories, our district and school administration, which is our superintendent, school board, and our building principals, as well, and curriculum director, as well as district support services, which is business services, HR, legal, elections, communication departments. So those two together, 4% of our budget is spent on district administration. And the categories with the red box are student-centered, so instructional support, vocational, special ed, and pupil support services. So about 78% of our expenses are student-centered. Another slide they had shows this spending activity over 5 years. So you can see consistently the blue highlighted categories for district administration are low, and the ones in the boxes are our largest categories. There is a rise in our special ed category as we are shifting over time some of our cooperative programs into Monticello based, as a lot of the students in those programs are mainly Monticello students versus making up students from other districts. Again, another slide showing our school district administration expenses over the couple years, and then how it compares to other schools that are 4,000 or larger enrollment for 2024 and the state average. There's always a lag with the state information as they wait to get until they have all the school financial information from all the schools in the state. So again, just wanted to highlight a couple things on our financial status and the audit that was presented in November. Going back to property tax information, so a lot of what is determined is by the state and many formulas. We actually 30 pages of formulas in how a school district levy is calculated. It's driven by enrollment counts, eligible expenses, population, voter-approved referendums, and property valuations. And just because a tax levy changes or increases doesn't mean that our budget necessarily increases. Many different revenue streams have a state aid and tax component to it. So sometimes when you see property values rise, the state will shift the more of it on the property tax revenue stream versus the state aid stream when it's determining our levy, so that there's more property value to spread the levy across. Taking a look at the property tax line from the district's perspective, so in the August of the summer, we're inputting a lot of the information to the state, telling them what we think our enrollment will be, what certain eligible expenses are, giving them our 10-year LTFM plan. And September 8th, they have to give the districts their first report that has 30 pages of calculation and determines what their levy is. And so typically at the meeting in September, schools approve a levy to the max, mainly because we're receiving updated reports almost, well, it's been better now, but we would receive updated reports almost daily, weekly on changes. And a lot of schools have their board meetings earlier in the month. And if you prove a specific dollar amount, you can't change it if there's a mistake or whatnot. An example for us would be if our September levy was 14 million and some odd dollars. If you would approved 14 million, we had a successful November election pass, and now our levy is potentially 17 million. Because you proved a dollar amount in September, you wouldn't be able to take advantage of that $3 additional million in levy. So schools tend to say levy to the max because a lot of calculations are still being calculated. We have our referendum where schools would have potentially more revenue come in, and it's at the December meeting that you approve a specific dollar amount. So just because it's a max doesn't mean we're going to try to go for $100 million. It's just the maximum of what the calculations allow. And then mid-November, people get their taxation notices, their valuation notices, statements, but it doesn't include a successful November question. In December, we have our hearing, and on December 15th, we have the approval of our levy. Then after that, people will receive their actual notices of what the actual levy will be after a successful November question. The next two slides has the summary of our different levies. So again, the biggest increase in our levy for next year in our general fund is mainly in the voter approved referendum, where it's increasing $3.4 million. Other levies that have big changes, our equity revenue is going down, mainly because the voter-approved referendum is increasing, so our equity revenue is going down as it's determined by revenue by school in your ranking, and if you're in the metro or not in the metro. Our local optional revenue is decreasing mainly due to enrollment, as well as our long-term facility revenue is decreasing because that is enrollment-based as well, and we are seeing declines in enrollment. Our other post-employment benefit levy is increasing with additional expenses and premium increases with our health insurance premiums. And then not as big change with our community service fund, a 5% increase, and a decrease with our debt service levy. Going back to September, our preliminary levy was actually going to go down by $328,000, but because we had a successful referendum, our overall levy is increasing $3 million or 21.15%. So with the impact to the taxpayers, there are different factors that could change or affect their tax bill. It could be the changes in their property value. It could be changes in the value of property in all the district. And if there's, for example, a voter-approved referendum. And the kind of three key variables in determining what that tax impact would be a person's estimated market value of their property, what classification are they falling under that's determined by the state that would give them that tax rate, and then all the tax levies that are determined by the city, county, and school. Taking a look at the timeline from the taxpayer's perspective, in January, property value, well, prior to January, the property values are assessed, but values are submitted on January 2nd. March, residents will receive a preliminary valuation notice. In the spring, you can go to the county board to challenge your valuation. Mid-November, residents would see that proposed tax statement notices. Again, it wouldn't include a successful referendum question. And then November and December, people can view their truth in taxation hearings at the city, county, and school level. And then in March of that following year, they'll receive their actual tax statement that has the correct property tax assessed. A couple slides for different examples. This is a valuation notice. So at the bottom of the front of the page is where they can go and reach out to if they want to challenge their property valuation, and on the back side there's information as well. And then also included a property tax notice example. Again, the November one wouldn't have the November levy on there, but the March one would. And then like to, categorize the impact of our tax levy as the pie, where the tax levy, the 30 pages of calculation, it determines the district's levy, and I categorize that as a pie. And depending on your valuation, determines how big your slice of the pie is. And another example of that includes just a simple example of two houses in a school district where the overall school levy is $500. And if they both had the same value, they would both pay equally for the school tax. But if one had a higher increase in their valuation compared to the other, that shift in their responsibility of the tax levy would change. And then I also included, again, Eller's property tax examples of what a taxpayer might see in the different valuations. We have charts for $150,000 property value, $250,000 value, and the little black box is the change with the voter-approved referendum. And the next two charts have a $350,000 example and a $450,000 property example. And both slides have where their tax impact is actually less than what we were communicating during our levy presentations. And I thought this slide was neat to show what the voter-approved versus non-voter-approved makeup is in $350,000 home examples. So you can see consistently, we have a pretty consistent levy year over year. And the last couple slides have information about a property tax refund or deferral, where People should consult their tax professional regarding that. And then our last slide, just overall showing our levy for payable 2026, $17,439,463.33, or a 21.15% increase. So asking for approval tonight, I don't know if we want to allow for public comment again. I mean, really, that was for December 1st, but if there's still a need, we can obviously have that, and I can answer any questions the board might have. Or superintendent.
Thanks, Tina. Always appreciate you going through this because this is difficult to wrap our heads around. In a lot of ways, it feels like there's so much information here, it would be difficult to pinpoint how to truly understand it as a homeowner in the area or a business owner. It's impressive that our community passed a large operating levy to really open up the opportunity to maintain what we've created here. In looking at trying to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers, what are some things that we can do as a board to look at, even though we've got this new operating levy going forward, that maybe we can take a little bit of the burden off of the taxpayers?
One thing I've mentioned previously, in November, we also had our actuarial study present to the board. I recommend the budget committee getting a projection from the actuarial study to show what's the sunset levy cost versus the non-set levy cost. We have our OPEB trust that can only be used for retiree health insurance. And so if the trust is overfunded, we could shift some of the sunset retiree costs to be paid out of the trust and kind of look at that annually to see if we can alleviate some of the levy pressure. If we're seeing a big increase, if we see a big inflation year, whatever the case may be, that we want to kind of shift that over the trust. We want to make sure we're not overspending the trust, because if that trust runs out and we still have contracts that don't have the sunset clause, we would have to pass and fund that through our general fund.
That sounds like an excellent idea. Is there a time of year that would be best for us to look at that as a budget committee?
I asked for the breakdown because we have the report, but if I could get that split out. So depending on what that is, I mean, it could be any time of the year, preferably before the preliminary levy in September would be ideal, because there's a lot of things that are happening. It's hard to do that on an evening in December when we're adopting the levy, because one of the things we have to submit our financial information to the state by November 30th. And you can't go back and change your numbers for the prior year. And I don't, you get, well, not anymore, we don't get awards, but it looks best when you can continually submit your financial information to the state on time and not have to go back and say, oh, we need to change how we spent our money. We need to transfer money or do different things. So I think prior to September each year would be ideal.
Like a good summer project?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Tina.
Is there an end to our OPEB trust? Do we have an estimation that it won't be necessary anymore?
Again, without Hildy or USI breaking it down by sunset, non-sunset, it's hard to see that. But right now, we're just under $1 million in our OPEB trust.
So yeah, as a board, we've seen this numerous times throughout the past couple of months. Thank you, Tina, for all the work that you do, obviously educating us with all the finances as we dig into it and learn more. This is an action item, so if there's no more questions, we'll take it to a vote.
I'll need a specific dollar amount.
Make a motion to accept the final levy approval to the max.
Nope, I need a dollar amount.
I thought we didn't want a dollar amount.
Nope, that's only in September where you levy to the max.
So what am I looking for? 3044508.
17 million,
Okay.
439.
Presentation.
That'd go over really well.
17,439,463.33.
Second.
Moved by Jeff, seconded by Melissa. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Tina. Now we'll move on to organizational meeting, date change discussion with Eric Olson, and this is another action item.
Yep, so I'm also gonna stay up here and, going on from the last subject, we're talking about property tax impact and what we can do. As you may recall, we're trying to refund or refinance one of our building bonds so that we can obtain a lower interest rate and again, try to lower that tax impact. We were, I think, officially going to market Monday, January 5th, and it's good to go out that first week in January, but if we could have something to the board after the 5th, it might reduce the risk of having a high rate versus a low rate. So if we can maybe look at Monday, January 12th as the first board meeting, that might give us more favorable results for our bond refunding.
We're looking to change a date? Is that what we're looking?
Yeah. So up on the screen are 6 different options.
I'm okay with the 12th.
Only one I can be at is the 12th.
Sounds like it's the 12th then.
4 people, that's what we need.
And what time is that a 5 o'clock then?
Would that be an actual meeting or just to run through what you need?
No, it'd be
Be the organizational meeting as well as other items.
Yeah, the 12th works for me as well. So this is a action item.
We'd move the work session as well. Yeah, okay.
Make a motion to move the January 5th meeting to Monday, January 12th.
Second.
Moved by Jeff, seconded by Bark. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thanks.
And now we'll go to the second reading of policies. This is a action item with a Superintendent Eric Olson.
All right, I have second reading here today of the policies below. Just as a reminder, policy 606.5, policy 611, policy 612.1, policies 901, policy 902, policy 903 have been through the policy committee, and they have also been here for first reading. We've had these for a couple weeks, and I would just pause here for any questions, and if there are no questions, I bring these forward for final action.
Questions? Hearing no questions? So
Have there been any changes since first reading? Okay.
So as Eric stated, yeah, these have gone through multiple readings. This is first at the policy committee, then brought to a first reading, reviewed by the board, and then now to a second reading. So this is an action item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jeff Hegle, second by Mark Branson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our school board meeting tonight. We will adjourn. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you.